Welcome to Revisit Books Podcast, where we turn books into bite-sized wisdom you can use every day. Today we're looking at Brianna Wiest's book, The Mountain Is You. And our goal really is to pull out the practical wisdom, the stuff you can use when you feel that internal resistance, that pattern that keeps holding you back.
Yeah, it's such a critical book because it shifts the whole perspective. We tend to look outside ourselves, right? Blame the boss, the economy, whatever.
Right, the external stuff.
But Wiest says, hold on. The real mountain, the big obstacle, it's actually inside us. It's this conflict between the part of you that knows what you want, maybe a better job, healthier habits, and the unconscious part that just digs its heels in and stops you.
Okay, let's unpack that straight away. Because that core idea, that metaphor, it suggests the path forward isn't about fighting the world. It's about understanding yourself.
Exactly. It's like an internal roadmap, trying to figure out why we do things that sabotage our own goals. When do those patterns kick in? And crucially, how do we actually stop them?
It sounds like it focuses heavily on that internal work for freedom, really.
It does. And one really interesting angle is how it views adversity. Wiest suggests that challenges, even breakdowns, aren't always negative. Sometimes life is actually working for us through those hard times.
That sounds a bit like the positive disintegration idea.
Precisely. We're taught to see any kind of breakdown as just failure, full stop. But psychologically, when our old ways of coping, our old structures just stop working, it's not necessarily just destruction.
So it's not just falling apart. There's something constructive in it.
Yeah.
How do we tell the difference between, say, just a really bad patch and this positive disintegration?
Well, positive disintegration is more like a necessary cleanse,
Right.
psychologically speaking. Think less of a building crumbling into rubble and more like a forest fire clearing out old undergrowth so new things can grow, or like a star collapsing before it goes supernova. It's when your old ways of being, your identity, your habits, how you see yourself, they become too small or maybe too messed up to support who you're actually becoming. The breakdown feels awful, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's positive because it forces you to see things you've been ignoring, maybe for years. It's that point where staying the same finally feels worse, more uncomfortable than the fear of changing. That's positive disintegration. Painful, yes, but it leads to something stronger, more authentic.
But that's a powerful reframe. It moves you out of being a victim, doesn't it? Instead of, why me? It's more like, okay, what is this forcing me to finally deal with?
Exactly. And that's why people like Don Zulueta called it a perfect roadmap, or Dr. Steven Eisenberg mentioned its value for well-being. It gives language to something so many people feel internally but maybe can't articulate.
Right. So let's talk about who really needs to hear this. Who needs to face their inner mountain?
Well, this isn't necessarily for someone dealing with a clear temporary setback, like, losing a job because the company downsized. That's just life happening.
Standard challenges.
Right. This conversation is more for people wrestling with those chronic internal blocks, the stuff that sticks around.
Okay, so we're talking about the deeper things, like that nagging anxiety that doesn't seem tied to anything specific, or low self-esteem that just won't budge, even when good things happen.
Or that general feeling of discontent, like something's just off and it kind of bleeds into everything. It's for the person who finds the same problems cropping up again and again, no matter where they live or who they're with.
So if the problem is external, it's circumstantial. But if it keeps repeating, the common denominator is you.
That's the tough pill to swallow sometimes. If the problem is chronic, you're facing yourself. And the resistance to seeing that is huge because, like the book says, this mountain isn't one single flaw. It's built up over time. It's the accumulation of self.
The accumulation of self, let's dig into that, because we often think of trauma as like one big event, right? But this sounds smaller, more gradual.
Exactly. It's the little things compounding. Tiny adjustments you made, maybe starting way back. Small compromises. Fears you didn't face. Coping mechanisms you picked up as a kid or a young adult that work then but don't work now. Every time you chose, say, the easy way out instead of discipline, or pleasing someone else over what you actually needed, you added a tiny pebble to this mountain. Over years, it builds up into this unstable foundation. It kept you safe, maybe. It helped you survive back then.
Right, it was a survival strategy.
But now that same structure actively blocks you from thriving, because thriving feels different, unfamiliar, maybe even scary.
So you've mastered surviving, but the system you built resists actually flourishing. Because comfort feels threatening if you've defined yourself by struggle for so long.
And that's the resistance we hit. You know what you want, the healthy relationship, the career success, whatever, but moving towards it brings up all this internal friction, this discomfort. So the way forward means dropping the denial. Realizing the block isn't out there, it's you. Facing that internal mountain, that's the only way to real freedom.
Okay, so if the mountain is made of these old defenses, these protective layers, that leads us right into the first big takeaway. Self-sabotage isn't about hating yourself. It's actually protection. That seems counterintuitive.
It really does, doesn't it? But that's the paradox at the heart of it. Self-sabotage feels like self-destruction, but the book argues it's your subconscious trying to meet some unmet need, usually related to safety or familiarity. It's like a risk assessment gone slightly wrong.
How so?
Your subconscious basically says, look, I know how to handle this level of unhappiness or struggle. It's familiar. That success thing, that happiness, that's unknown territory, could be dangerous. Let's stick with what we know. It prioritizes known pain over unknown potential.
Wow. Okay, let's explore that protective angle more.
Yeah.
The book uses Carl Jung's fainting spells as an example. How does that illustrate it?
Right, so Jung as a kid apparently got knocked on the head once and realized, maybe subconsciously, hey, if I'm hurt, I don't have to go to school, which he really disliked.
Yeah.
Soon after, he started having these uncontrollable fainting spells, a classic neurosis, really. His body found a way to solve the emotional problem avoiding school by creating a physical one. The unconscious mind basically thought, well, I can't just decide not to go, so I'll make myself unable to go.
Okay.
It wasn't laziness, it was self-protection against something deeply unpleasant for him.
The body took the path of least resistance unconsciously.
Exactly. So for us today, maybe it's not fainting spells, but it could be, say, finding constant fault with a partner just when things start getting serious.
Pushing them away before you get hurt.
Or maybe chronically missing deadlines for a project that could actually lead to a big step up in your career. The subconscious fears the responsibility or the visibility or maybe failure after success, so it subtly sabotages the path there.
Or, like the book mentions, endlessly psychoanalyzing your feelings instead of actually, feeling them, creating an intellectual shield.
Yes, that's a very common one. You talk about the feeling, but you avoid the raw experience of it. The sabotage provides temporary safety, but it keeps you stuck. Perpetual stagnation.
And a lot of this ties back to those limiting beliefs we picked up, often when we were young, right? And then confirmation bias just keeps reinforcing them.
Absolutely. Our idea of who we are is built on those early stories. If you grew up thinking money is scarce, or maybe that successful people are inherently greedy or stressed, your mind wires up a negative association.
Right. So take someone who keeps messing up their finances, even when they start doing well.
They might have this deep down belief, maybe totally unconscious, that rich people are bad or money corrupts. So the sabotage isn't really about the money itself.
It's about protecting their identity. Like, I don't want to become one of those people.
Precisely. They're protecting who they currently see themselves as maybe as good or authentic in contrast to that negative image of success. This ties directly into Gay Hendricks' concept of the upper limit.
Ah, yes, the upper limit, our tolerance for happiness, basically.
Or just our tolerance for things going well for a sustained period. It's like we have this internal thermostat set to a certain level of okayness or maybe even a certain level of familiar struggle. When things get too good for too long, it exceeds that setting and we unconsciously find ways to bring things back down to the baseline.
Even if that baseline involves being unhappy or stressed.
Even then, because it's familiar discomfort. The mind mistakes the discomfort of the new, positive, unfamiliar situation, the stress of managing success, maybe with a sign that something is fundamentally wrong or bad.
Okay, so how does that upper limit sabotage actually look in practice? What are the signs we might be hitting it?
Oh, it can be quite sneaky, but also dramatic. You score a big win, land the dream client, get the promotion, maybe feel really good in a relationship, and then bam, within hours or days, you manufacture a crisis. Picking a huge fight with your partner over something trivial. Suddenly developing a mysterious illness right before a big presentation. Falling off the wagon with alcohol or spending after a period of doing well. Or just intense self-criticism and doubt that pops up right after praise. Finding all the reasons why the success isn't real or won't last.
Wow. So it's not that you don't want the good thing.
No, consciously you definitely want it.
But it makes you feel emotionally unsafe because it's new territory.
Exactly. It creates dissonance. Your system goes, warning, unfamiliar feeling detected, return to baseline. Overcoming it means consciously working to make the unfamiliar feel familiar. Slowly, steadily.
So if something great happens, instead of immediately finding fault, maybe you should consciously ground yourself.
That's a great strategy. Do something safe and routine, meditate, do the dishes, go for a walk. You're basically signaling to your nervous system, see, we can have the success and still be okay. Nothing catastrophic is happening. You're gently expanding that comfort zone.
That comfort zone, that familiarity,
Yeah.
it's the cage, isn't it? And breaking out takes real effort. Is that why Weem talks about needing the fire, that necessary breakdown sometimes to really spark deep change?
I think so, yes. We humans are creatures of habit. We resist change until we absolutely have to. Inertia is powerful. Most people won't overhaul their lives, their beliefs, their relationships, their core habits unless the pain of staying put becomes greater than the fear of moving forward.
The less comfortable option, as you said.
Right, and that's when we get pushed into that positive disintegration. It often happens when all the old coping mechanisms just completely fail at once. Which brings us to the idea of rock bottom.
And we need to be clear, rock bottom isn't just having a bad week.
No, not in this context. It's when the consequences of the self-sabotage, the denial, the failing coping strategies, they pile up so high you just can't ignore the truth anymore. It's that moment of horrible clarity where you finally see the problem isn't just out there, the common factor in all these recurring struggles. It's me, my patterns, my choices, my defenses.
And the book highlights that powerful thought that often comes at rock bottom. I never want to feel this way again.
That thought is potent. It's like a declaration, a turning point.
Right.
It shifts everything. Suddenly, figuring out whose fault it was becomes irrelevant. Blaming others, blaming circumstances, it just falls away.
Because the focus shifts completely.
Entirely. It shifts from justifying the past to resolving to build a different future. A future where this specific feeling, this unbearable pain, simply isn't allowed to exist. It's all about resolution, not justification.
Okay, but what about situations where the pain really does stem from external factors?
Yeah.
Genuine trauma, systemic issues, things that were truly unfair. How does this idea of taking responsibility avoid just blaming the victim? Where's that line?
That's such an important question, and the distinction is crucial. Accountability here isn't about taking blame for what happened to you. You didn't cause the trauma. You didn't create the unfair system.
Right.
Accountability is about taking responsibility for your response going forward. The world might always throw unfair challenges your way. Radical accountability means saying, okay, that happened. I didn't control that event. But I do control how I process it, how I frame it, how I heal from it, and what actions I take now.
It's about owning the power. You do have the power over your internal state and your future choices, regardless of the external chaos.
I see. So it's about focusing on your agency now, rather than waiting for the world to be fair before you start healing or moving forward.
Exactly. But making that shift, committing to that level of accountability, it comes at a cost. We have to talk about what you potentially lose when you decide to become this new person.
Okay. What are the main things people need to brace themselves for losing?
Well, first, the obvious one. That old comfort zone. Even if it was miserable, it was familiar, predictable, that's gone. Second, some relationships might not survive the change.
Why is that? Because some connections are built entirely around your old identity, your old struggles. When you change, the dynamic changes, and not everyone can or wants to adapt. Friends, family, partners, some might drift away or even resist your growth. And third, maybe the hardest one for many, is losing the need to be liked and understood by everyone. That constant effort to manage perceptions, to avoid disapproval, you have to let that go.
That sounds liberating, but also terrifying.
It is both. But the trade-off, according to Wiest, is huge. Instead of being vaguely liked by many, you end up being deeply loved and respected by the people who genuinely resonate with your authentic self. Instead of trying to be understood by everyone, you'll be truly seen by those who matter.
So clinging to the old life,
Right.
the old comforts, the relationships, based on the old you that becomes the final form of self-sabotage.
Yes, you have to be willing to mourn the person you were, the one who got you this far, but recognize they aren't equipped for the next stage of the journey.
And the very first practical step to start this whole healing journey, getting brutally honest, tearing down that wall of denial.
Absolutely. No more blaming, no more justifying, no more just slapping positive affirmations on top of genuine pain. That just creates a disconnect. You need radical clarity.
What does that look like, practically?
It means facing the unvarnished truth. Literally write it down. Every debt, every bill you're avoiding, everything you genuinely dislike about your current situation, what upsets you deeply, get it all out in the open. You can't fix what you refuse to acknowledge. You need to know exactly what's wrong before you can decide. Am I going to change this, or am I going to find a way to make peace with it? Suffering loves the gray area, the ambiguity. Clarity is the starting point.
Okay, that clarity, however scary, opens the door. But moving from that point of decision to actual lasting change, that requires shifting how we think about change itself. Takeaway 3 pushes back against waiting for some huge dramatic breakthrough moment, right?
Yes, exactly. That desire for the lightning bolt, the one big epiphany that changes everything, it's often just another excuse to wait, another form of resistance. Weiss argues that real change, lasting change, happens in microshifts.
Microshifts, tiny adjustments.
Tiny, almost invisible decisions and actions, made hour by hour, day by day. The big breakthrough isn't the start of the change, it's the result, the tipping point that comes after potentially months or years of consistent, maybe even boring small steps.
It's a compound interest for personal growth. The penny doubling example really illustrates this, doesn't it?
It's perfect. $1 million right now sounds amazing. But a penny that doubles every day for a month, for the first week or two, it feels like nothing's happening. You've got, what, less than $2?
Right, you'd feel like you made the wrong choice.
But by the end of the month, that penny is worth over $10 million. The small, consistent effort yields exponential results over time. So if big changes feel overwhelming, if they trigger that upper limit panic, start ridiculously small.
Make it easy to succeed.
Exactly. Want to exercise? Don't aim for an hour at the gym. Start with 15 minutes of walking, maybe just 5 minutes. Make the first step so easy that not doing it feels silly. You're gradually retraining your nervous system to see the new behavior as safe, achievable, even normal.
And importantly, this consistent action shouldn't depend on feeling motivated or passionate every day. The book argues that life outcomes are governed by principles, not feelings.
This is a really key distinction. Principles are like objective laws of nature. Gravity works whether you feel like believing in it today or not, right? The law of sowing and reaping, you plant corn, you get corn. Principles are like that for life. They're about cause and effect.
Where's motivation?
Motivation is an emotion. It comes and goes. It's unreliable. You can't build lasting change on something so fickle. Principles are the bedrock.
Okay, so give me an example. Let's say the principle is financial responsibility. How does that work day to day, regardless of mood?
If you adopt the principle of living beneath your means, you make spending decisions based on that principle, not based on whether you feel flush today or deprived tomorrow. You save a certain percentage, you track expenses, you avoid unnecessary debt consistently. You do it even when you don't feel like it, even when it's inconvenient, because you're committed to the principle, not the feeling.
So the long-term outcome financial stability maybe becomes almost an inevitable consequence of sticking to the principle, not because you were inspired every single day.
Precisely. It takes the emotional roller coaster out of it and replaces it with consistent, logical action. And this requires real mental strength. But again, mental strength isn't about being relentlessly positive.
What is it then?
It's the ability to handle complex, difficult, even contradictory emotions while still thinking clearly and acting in line with your principles. It's about emotional intelligence and logical processing power.
And this connects to that interesting point about anxiety, that when we're anxious, we often think we're overthinking, but maybe we're actually underthinking.
Yes, that's a fascinating insight. Anxiety often involves a logical lapse. We get stuck in the fear, right? We play the mental movie of what might go wrong, but we stop it halfway through, usually at the worst possible moment.
The climax of the disaster becomes the end of the story in our heads. I'll panic, I'll fail, everyone will laugh.
Exactly. We don't follow the thought through to its actual logical conclusion. What happens after the panic? What happens after the failure?
So the way to combat that irrational fear is to force yourself to finish the movie, to visualize the whole thing.
You have to play it all the way out. Okay, name the fear. What's the absolute worst case scenario? Imagine it vividly. Then, and this is the crucial part, visualize how you would respond. What steps would you take? Who would you call for help? How would you start to recover? What would you learn from it?
You're proving to yourself logically that even if the worst happens, you can handle it. You have resources. You have resilience.
Right. Mental strength isn't hoping bad things won't happen. It's building the unshakable belief, grounded in logic and self-awareness, that you have the capacity to cope when they inevitably do.
Okay, so if self-sabotage is protection and clear thinking is crucial, then those moments when we get emotionally triggered, they must be more than just random annoyances.
Yeah.
Takeaway 4 seems to frame triggers as messengers.
Exactly. Triggers aren't just noise, they're like little flashing signals pointing directly to where we're still wounded, where old defenses are still active, or where we're actually ready to grow. Think of it like your body holding onto unresolved emotional energy, an emotional backlog.
And when something touches on that backlog,
Ping! Trigger activated. Every time you ignore an emotion, suppress it, deny it, push it down, you store that energy somewhere. And then you become hypersensitive to anything that might stir it up again.
let's break down some common emotions we tend to suppress and what they might actually be trying to tell us. Anger, for instance. It gets such a bad rap.
It really does, mostly because we confuse anger with aggression, which is its shadow side. But healthy anger is actually a powerful, vital, even beautiful emotion. Its job is to mobilize us.
Mobilize us how?
To set boundaries, to stand up against injustice, whether it's happening to us or someone else, to initiate action when something needs to change. When we squash that anger down, it doesn't just disappear. It turns inward into resentment or depression, or it leaks out sideways as passive aggression or outbursts directed at the wrong targets. Often, feeling genuine anger is the last stop before making a major life change.
Okay. What about sadness?
Sadness is simply the natural, healthy response to loss. And loss isn't just about death, right? It's losing a job, losing a friendship, losing an opportunity, even losing an idea you had about how your life was supposed to look. Sadness only becomes a problem, becomes depression, when we resist grieving, when we refuse to feel it. We often think crying is weak, but allowing yourself to cry is actually a sign of strength. It's a physical and chemical release of that pent-up energy.
And regret. We usually think of regret as just pointlessly dwelling on the past.
But the book reframes it. Regret isn't there to torture you about what you should have done. It's showing you very clearly what you must do now going forward.
Oh, sir.
If you deeply regret not traveling when you were younger, that feeling isn't meant to make you feel bad about the past. It's a powerful nudge from your inner self saying, this is important. Prioritize travel now. Regret highlights what's missing and what needs to become a priority for your future self.
That makes sense. Now, connecting this back to self-sabotage, the book talks about digging underneath the behavior, the sabotage itself, to find the underlying need it's trying to meet. This seems critical.
Absolutely critical. Because most attempts to change fail because they focus only on stopping the behavior, the core commitment, as the book calls it, without understanding or addressing the unmet core need driving it. The subconscious chose that destructive behavior because, based on past experiences, it somehow seemed like the safest or only way to get that need met.
Okay, let's use some examples from the book. What about someone who keeps ending up in relationships with people who are unavailable, maybe emotionally broken, or just won't commit? What's the need there?
Right. So the behavior, the commitment is attracting unavailable partners. The underlying need could be complex. Maybe it's recreating a familiar childhood pattern where love felt unstable or conditional, so that feels normal.
Wow.
Or perhaps the need is to feel needed, to feel valuable by fixing or saving a broken person. So the commitment to chaotic relationships, ironically, fulfills a subconscious need for familiarity or maybe a need for validation through sacrifice, even while consciously the person craves stable love.
That's a deep-rooted pattern. What about something seemingly simpler, like chronic lateness? How could that be serving a need?
The behavior is lateness. The underlying need being met could be a need for control or maybe a feeling of power. If you're always making people wait, even subtly, you're controlling the situation, making the world adapt to you.
Especially if you felt powerless growing up.
Potentially, yes. The subconscious commitment to lateness provides a fleeting sense of autonomy, even though it damages your reputation or relationships. It serves the need, but in a destructive way.
And one more. The person who's always frantically busy, the workaholic, looks productive, but is it sabotage?
It definitely can be. The commitment is constant busyness, always seeming indispensable. The need beneath it is often about seeking security or validation externally. They might be running from uncomfortable feelings that surface when they're alone, or trying to prove their worth through sheer output because they don't feel inherently valuable.
So the pattern is, the less you consciously address and meet the core need in healthy ways, like finding internal security or asking directly for what you need, the louder and more destructive the sabotaging behavior becomes.
Exactly. You have to stop just fighting the symptom and start understanding and feeding the underlying need in a constructive way.
Okay, so we've identified the mountain within. We understand the sabotage is protection. We know how to listen to our emotions. The final big piece seems to be actually letting go of that old identity, that old way of being. And the book insists you can't just force yourself to let go.
Right. Telling yourself just move on or get over it usually backfires. It's like trying not to think of a pink elephant. The effort itself keeps the thing you want to release right in front of your mind. It tightens the grip.
So what is the way to release the past? It seems like a paradox.
It is a bit counterintuitive. You don't release the past by focusing on dissolving it. You release it by focusing all your energy on building a new life, a new present and future that is so engaging, so fulfilling, so immersive that the old life, the old pain, the old identity just gradually fades into the background. You forget it because you're too busy living now.
So don't fight the old, build the new. That makes sense. And this connected to that technique mentioned, memory renarration. It sounds like more than just positive thinking.
It's much deeper. It leverages how our brains actually store and recall memories, especially the emotional charge attached to them. Memory isn't like a perfect video recording, it's changeable.
How does the technique work?
You consciously recall a painful memory, but instead of just replaying the scene, you first locate where you feel the discomfort from that memory in your body right now, maybe a tightness in your chest, a knot in your stomach. That physical sensation is the portal to the emotion.
Okay.
You breathe into that physical spot, really connect with it. Then you actively superimpose a new narrative onto the memory. But the key is who provides the narrative.
It has to be your future healed self.
Exactly. You visualize your strongest, wisest, most compassionate future self, the version of you who has already navigated this and come through it, sitting with your younger self in that painful moment. And this future self offers the guidance, the reassurance, the validation that your younger self needed but didn't get back then. You tell yourself, it's okay, you handled this, look who you became because of it.
You're not changing the facts of what happened.
No, the facts remain. But you're changing the emotional meaning associated with the memory. You're decoupling the pain from the event and integrating resilience and wisdom instead. It frees up the energy that was tied to that old suffering.
And doing this kind of work helps us let go of another big trap. The idea that we can only be happy or okay once everything is perfect, once all our flaws are fixed.
Oh, absolutely. That pursuit of perfection is just another mountain, another form of resistance. The universe doesn't do perfection. Think about it. Geological fault lines create mountains, star implosions create supernovas. Imperfection is inherent in creation and growth. Trying to smooth out every single flaw before you allow yourself happiness is like, well, it's ensuring you'll never be happy.
Because the fixing will never be done.
Never. True healing, the book suggests, means showing up as you are right now, flaws and all. It means learning to be comfortable with happiness in the present moment, even amidst imperfection. It means living by your principles, regardless of whether everything is perfectly aligned externally.
So the real issue isn't the flaw, it's our resistance to being okay with the flaw, right here, right now.
Precisely. All the frantic fixing is often just a way to avoid the discomfort of simply being present with what is. And to help with that, to really normalize the feeling of positive change and shift from always surviving to actually thriving, there's that visualization exercise, connecting with your future self.
This isn't just wishful thinking, is it? It's about actively embodying that future identity.
It's an exercise in normalization and integration. You find a quiet space, get centered, and vividly imagine meeting your highest potential future self, the version of you who is living the life you aspire to.
And you interact with them.
Yes, ask questions. What are they wearing? How do they carry themselves? What do they feel most often? What's their core philosophy? Critically, what advice do they have for you right now, today? The goal is to start merging with that version of you, to make that positive future feel familiar and achievable. It helps bypass the upper limit alarm because the change doesn't feel like a dangerous unknown. It feels like stepping into an identity that already exists, waiting for you. You're essentially getting instructions from the part of you that already knows the way.
Wow, that's a powerful way to frame it. Following the instructions of your highest self. This has been an incredible look at our own internal landscapes, realizing the mountain is inside us, seeing self-sabotage as this, well, misguided shield, finding guidance in emotions, the power of tiny shifts, and letting go by building something new.
It really boils down to self-mastery, doesn't it? Taking ownership, realizing, okay, I built this mountain, maybe unconsciously, but I did. And that means I also have the power to climb it or maybe even dismantle it. Those years of struggle weren't for nothing. They were signals deep down telling us change was needed and that we are capable of it.
And ultimately, it comes down to a choice about discomfort. Life involves discomfort one way or another.
Always.
So do you choose the discomfort of staying stuck, spinning your wheels, worrying about fears you've likely inflated to justify not moving? Or do you choose the discomfort of growth, of pushing your boundaries, of taking action towards who you want to become.
Action is the antidote. Movement creates emotional freedom. Worrying doesn't protect you. Preparation and clear thinking do. Overthinking doesn't solve it. Understanding your patterns and acting on principles does. We need to guide ourselves with that vision, with logic, build momentum, and eventually those healthier choices start to feel like the natural, comfortable ones.
That's today's breakdown. While this discussion cannot replace the book's full text, it can offer a glimpse into its teachings. Hope you found this discussion helpful, and I look forward to sharing more. Let me know what book next you want to discuss.